Hi, my name's Andy Reese with the Freedom Resource. I want to ask you a question. What is the one message that God wants to get across to you? If God could say only one thing, what would it be? What do you think? Would it be shape up? Would it be obey me? Would it be I love you? What would that one message be? Well, you know what? God tells us what that one message is. It says in Romans, and it says also in Galatians, it says that God put his spirit inside of us. Let me just read the passage from Galatians. Because you're sons, God has set his spirit into you, and his spirit cries out, Abba, Father. Therefore, you're no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir. And in Romans 8, it says, you've not received a spirit of slavery so that you should be afraid again of God. But you've received a spirit of adoption as sons, by which you yourself cry out, Abba, Father. You see, the one thing that God wants you to get above every other thing is that he wants you to call him Abba. The spirit inside says, Abba. Then in Romans, you yourself cry Abba. In fact, Jesus, the one time that we hear Jesus say Abba is when he's in the garden. And he's in agony, and he cries, Abba, and the writer says he cries, Abba, Abba. I used to think maybe on the inside the Spirit would say something like, no, stupid, not like that, or I know you can do better, or come on, you can do it. But it's not like that at all. In fact, I discovered something in myself, and that is that I had a spirit that felt more like an orphan than a son. You see, an orphan spirit, let's just take self-image for example. An orphan son feels self-rejection because they compare themselves to others and they feel rejected, whereas a son feels positive and feels affirmed. Let's take your motive for purity. Let's say you're struggling to be pure. What's your motivation? Someone who feels like an orphan must be holy so that they can gain God's favor. But someone who's a son wants to be holy because they already have God's favor and they don't want to wound his heart. Your source of comfort. Someone who has an orphan heart sees addictive behaviors as comfort. They need to medicate. But someone who has a spirit of sonship, someone who knows they can cry out Abba, seeks times of quiet with the Father that they can just sit and rest. And finally, your expression of love. Someone who has an orphan spirit feels guarded, and the love is conditional. It's based on performance. They seek to get their needs met. Whereas someone who feels that sonship, who knows they're not a slave, has an open and a patient and compassionate love. They're willing to lay down their agenda and love someone else and to meet their needs. Someone who feels like an orphan always has to fight for what they get. But someone who's a son feels redeemed. They know they have an inheritance. I want to tell you today that if you feel that sense of being fatherless, of being an orphan, Jesus says in John 14, I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. And he's done that. He's done that. And the spirit that's inside of you, if you're a believer in Jesus, the spirit cries out again and again and again like a homing beacon. And it says, Abba, Abba, which today would be Papa. God says, look, call me Pops. Call me Papa. Come into the throne room. I'm not busy with China. I'm not busy with the election. I'm not too busy for you. I want to encourage you today to go boldly into the throne room and say, you told me to call you Abba. Is it okay? I want you to know that God chose you. As children, we sometimes say, well, I didn't choose to be in this family. And I remember my mom said to me, well, I didn't choose you. Well, the reality is, God did choose us. Before we were worth anything to him and we were sinners, God chose us. How much more now? So I want you to know that he's got room on his lap for you. And you can say Abba, and he'll say, my child. I'm Andy Reese with the Freedom Resource. God bless you.